Hi, my name is David Bishop, and as D.V. Bishop, I'm the author of this book, City of Vengeance, which has been shortlisted for the Wilbur Adventure Writing Prize. What does my writing routine look like? Chaos, I suspect, from outside. In reality, I try and write first thing in the morning where possible. I run a creative writing program at Edinburgh Napier University in Scotland, and I find that after I've been working all day, there's not a lot left in the tank to give. So I have to get up usually 5:30 in the morning and write for an hour or two, which is not so bad during the summer, but in the depths of winter is slightly less hospitable, I think would be the polite description. So I wanted to show you something which has been incredibly helpful for me when I've been writing, when I was writing City of Vengeance, and I'm currently writing the next Cesare Aldo novel. And it's this, it's a map of Florence, the city of Florence, Firenze, as it's known in Italy. This map is actually from somewhere in the 19th century. So as a consequence, this is Florence slightly more built up than it was in the period in my book. But it still is the shape of the city wall, the River Arno flowing through it, there's the Duomo, and the other parts of the city. So there are things on here which weren't around in City of Vengeance, like the Boboli Gardens, which if you ever go to Florence, I highly recommend it's a visit to visit. But nonetheless, it sort of was very helpful when I was figuring out how my characters were going to navigate their way through the city, which is almost entirely on foot in the book. Other than being a writer, what is my dream job? Other than being a writer, I think my dream job is helping other people to create whatever that might be. I used to be a comics editor. In the 90s, I worked on a title called 2000 AD, which has sort of been running for nearly 50 years now and is sort of the mothership of British comics. So I spent a lot of time working with new writers and artists there, helping them to learn their craft and progress. So I found that really enjoyable. And teaching now, creative writing, sort of scratches the same itch. It's helping others to sort of make the most of the talents that they have. So if I wasn't writing, then I probably would be doing what I'm already doing, which is teaching as well as writing. So a bit of both. Who are 3 authors or books that have influenced my work? Well, first of all, I'm going to have to mention Abir Mukherjee, who's a past winner of the Wilbur Adventure Writing Prize. I love his series set in post-World War I India, which is crime fiction, historical crime fiction, the 20th century. And they're great. They're about a good man, or 2 good men, in fact, who are in the service of what's a bad system, an unjust system, but they're trying to do the right thing. And you can absolutely, all of Abir's books, it feels like you're being transported to India of that period. So they were a big inspiration when I was working on City of Vengeance. There's a New Zealand writer called Ronald Hugh Morrison, which a lot of people outside New Zealand haven't really heard of. He was a writer in the 60s, and he wrote sort of adventure stories of life in rural New Zealand, and there would be crime and mystery, but they were told from a sort of a quirky point of view. Sometimes there were child narrators. It was not detectives or police or lawyers or anything like that. So there were adventures, but there was sort of danger and mystery. And they absolutely capture New Zealand as that period. I'm from New Zealand originally, hence the accent. So they're very evocative for me. And then the third writer that's been influenced on the writing I'm doing now is Frederick Forsyth, who wrote books like The Odessa File and The Day of the Jackal. And it's what I love about Forsyth's book is pace. The writing is so lean. There's nothing to get in the way of the story. There's no sort of hand-waving, look at me, aren't I a clever writer? And they're just really well-crafted, total page-turners, and often quite anti-heroic characters as the protagonist of the story. So yeah, all of those have been influences on the writing I'm doing now. In real life, what's my kind of adventure? If I had to choose an adventure, it would be In New Zealand, there is a thing called Te Araroa, which translates as the long path. So over about 10 years, they built a pathway that stretches the entire length of New Zealand from the top of the North Island to the bottom of the South Island. It's about 3,000 miles or kilometers, I can never remember which, and you can walk it. So you can walk the path, you can walk the length of the entire country. And I would love to do it. It takes a minimum, I think if you're a fast, like if you're used to hiking in the countryside, tramping as it's called in New Zealand, and sleeping in tents and all of that, then you can do it in 3 to 4 months by foot. It's generally, most people take at least 6 months to do it, and you have to choose your time of year and which part of the country you're starting from. What's the best advice someone has ever given me about writing? Pretty straightforward, actually. It's to read the genre you want to write. The more you read in the genre you want to write, the greater a sense you will have of what a reader expects from those sorts of stories. And then you can choose as the writer whether you want to meet all the reader's expectations or whether you want to challenge or subvert some of those expectations. But it's a lot easier to start breaking the rules if you know what the rules are first. And the best way to know that is to read the genre you want to write. What is the best thing about being a writer? And what's the hardest thing about being a writer? The best thing about being a writer is those light bulb moments, those the sort of lightning bolts of inspiration where you suddenly make the connections, particularly if you're writing sort of mystery stories or thrillers, which a lot of adventure writing is. It's where you suddenly go, oh, of course, it's whatever it is. So those moments of just pure inspiration and creativity are wonderful. The hardest thing about being a writer is everything else. It's a lot of typing, if nothing else, and it's getting from those moments of inspiration to the end, effectively. It's finding your way through the path, and then having found a way through the path, then clearing it and making it all seem effortless, making it seem very simple and easy, the easiest thing in the world to tell a story.